Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be starting in about 12 minutes. And welcome to August.
Good Lord, how did that happen?
Right? Oh my God.
Yes, it's like, what is it going to be now? So now it's the Chinese seeds. That's the big talk.
That's right.
The Chinese seeds is the big talk of the town.
I must have missed that talk. What's
You know
happening?
me, I'm always paying attention to those like little weird things, you know. Hi, Becky.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. We are so happy that you're on.
Yeah,
Yay.
I'm excited.
Right?
Hey, Meredith.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good.
Good.
I hear you know each other.
Yes, we do.
Gosh, we've known each other for a very long time. I don't remember how we first got connected, but you were still at Dish.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was with Mary Faulkner, maybe.
It must have been
Yeah.
through
yeah.
Disrupt, our
Yeah.
Disrupt.
Oh, world. I think I interviewed for a position there once. Eons ago.
Yeah. It's an interesting place. I think one of the things that makes it really interesting is, how much it's changed over the years, but also because there's so many people that have gone through, I feel like I'm only 1 degree of separation from almost everybody in the Denver area.
Yeah, I've noticed that positions open up a lot there. So
Yeah, well, they're like, I think King Soopers is the only employer that's bigger in Denver. So
Wow, I did not know that.
that's big. Even bigger than Amazon?
in Denver, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because
And
they're
Schwab? Bigger than Schwab?
maybe not Schwab anymore. That's a good point, because, well, except we've got all the call centers and all the installers.
Yeah, quite a hub.
So I don't
Maybe.
know. Yeah, I think when I had that data point in my head, it might have been pre-Schwab.
Right.
So it's big. Let's just say it's big.
So what do you guys think about all the hubbub going on with Ellen DeGeneres and the whole culture concerns? I find, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Yeah,
It's interesting because we're we do people strategy forums, and it's all over the news. I can't say I defend or understand it completely, but her claim is that she was unaware that there was a culture problem in the organization, fully not acknowledging.
In her organization?
Yes. So there's like well over 30, like 35 plus former employees that are now alleging that it was not a very nice culture.
well, mostly her is the
Yeah.
Oh,
problem.
is that what you heard?
It's it's mostly aimed at her, that she's the source of it, which is kind of true.
Yeah.
Culture starts at the top.
I know there's been a
Now,
there's
go
been
ahead.
there's been a lot of talk about it, because I think I remember years ago she was frustrated with it herself. I mean, she was just getting burnt out or worn out, because there was actually an interview she did. She said, just saying it's so difficult because she's done the Disney, the Dory thing, and she's been always has to have this personality of being uplifting and engaging and kind and so forth. And she mentioned it's just so tiring to have that all the time in this interview a couple of years ago. And then I started hearing these comments come out about people that attended her show that thought that they were mistreated and so forth. And I think it's just a slow culture creep, downward is probably what's happened. but you know, it's interesting. You know, I've read a couple of those interviews or comments that have come out, and you know, with celebrities, it can go either way. It could be people just, you know, hating or trolling or whatever, but it's just something that I think all leaders have to be aware of is keeping pulse on the culture and getting regular feedback. And it's obvious that that's not something that happened there. I mean, if this is some sort of surprise to her, I mean, she wasn't soliciting feedback on a regular basis, or there wasn't a culture of comfort, a psychological safety to where people can give her feedback.
Well, that's what's so super interesting, is that the kindness is her motto. I don't know what her actual motto states, but it's all about being kind to people. And part of what I'm hearing is not being able to make eye contact with her because she's such a, you know, celebrity. But then I was hearing in other celebrities as well, such as David Letterman and a few others, there might have been a culture of that whole I'm the senior, you know, don't look at me, don't make eye contact. And you know, it's interesting, in my experience, I worked in a major healthcare system, and I gave that feedback to the president of the system, because he did get feedback from the top 300 leaders, and he said, and I'm not going to say who it is, but he goes, I want you to be brutally honest and brutally authentic about what I can do to change. And I said, well, when you walk into the building, there's a perception that you're untouchable, like, don't look at me, don't make eye contact. And I said, it's actually the executive assistants that I have noticed it the most. And believe me, executive assistants know everything in the company. They're like that liaison between the executive team and the culture, right? Like Lisa, you had that guest on a month ago, I believe her name. And she was the executive assistant to the CFO. One of the CFO. And she ended up being like that culture liaison that said, I'm going to be honest with you how you're being perceived as a senior exec.
I wonder too, I mean, just the standard we hold celebrities to. And that you've got this persona and you've got to be that way all the time. And there's no transparency in that, you know, when you're having a bad day or things just aren't working right. I met Oprah at the ATV conference last year. And, you know, I have to say, like, the way you think of Oprah and the way my meeting was with her, I walked away going, I was disappointed because she wasn't warm. And I know when I think about it that her life, here she just gave a speech in front of thousands of people, you know, 15,000 people. And then I get to meet her. She's exhausted. I have a feeling she may not have been feeling well that day. But the way they ran us through this gauntlet, and we were told, don't talk to her, just go, take the picture, leave. And it was just like, it was not a good experience.
I mean, I do think that what, you know, and it is important not to project what I think onto Ellen and her culture, that you really let the process speak for itself. But I think when you're up in that public eye, I think about myself, and I have all these different facets to myself and my moods and my ways of being, and that it has been, for me, I've coached CEOs sometimes on what Shar was just talking about, that when you're visible in public, you know, that people are doing exactly what we're doing. We're talking about that situation and having our own opinions projected onto it. But in the end, you're allowed to have a bad day. You're allowed to be, you know, it's just not to have it become an indictment on your entire character. And, you know, I've coached CEOs on being able to close their energy field just enough to be able to, like, get through their day, because there's constantly pounded with people who want their attention. And so, you know, her not making eye contact, when I heard that, I was like, that's probably a coaching thing that somebody has taught her how to, because she's concentrating on, you know, this, like, especially if she's coming out and doing her monologue, you know, she's in her mind, I know what it, you know, she's running it. She's running it. She's running it. Like, I can't be distracted by you. And so being mean is not okay. But, you know, if there was that just gets blown, I think, out of proportion in guessing that she's both of those.
So
One
what
of
I found,
something.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Smith.
Well, I was just going to say, so all of this to me underscores the importance of communication. And if you're having a bad day as a leader, then say, look, you guys, I'm not all together here, or this is going on with me, or, you know, Oprah, I don't feel good today, so excuse me for not being my normal, wonderful self. But if you don't express that, and if you're not vulnerable enough to be courageous and say, I'm not feeling it today, then you will be a victim of that level of criticism, I think.
Especially
so you've got to leave.
When you're in the public eye like that.
Yes, yes.
Were you going to say, Sumit?
So actually, I completely agree with what Meredith just said. I think it's about being courageous, and specifically in the Ellen example, I didn't like how she threw every one of her staff under the bus, saying, so the messages I took away from what she said was, she said, we've grown a lot. I hired people to do their jobs. Clearly, some didn't. That's what she said. So even the apology, or the so-called apology, isn't real. So all she needed to do, so while an apology doesn't really cut it, but at least she could have been authentic and courageous in saying, this is not what I stand for. I regret what happened. We will fix it. I didn't see that message coming, so it was a big disappointment.
Amen.
Especially because I've been a fan, so I was very, very upset about what she said.
Well, this has been a very engaging dialogue. I think it's very relevant to today. And I just want to say hello and welcome to the People Strategy Forum. And my name is Shar Miller, and I am a talent management consultant, as well as I own a company called Rocky Mountain Health Advocates. And I've just had the absolute pleasure of partnering with my comp team, which includes Sam Reed. He's the founder and CEO of Comp Team, as well as Sumit Singla, and he is in India. So he's across the other side of the world. And then my colleague, Lisa Jackson, and she is a culture strategist. So this conversation is very relevant to her world of expertise, and she works with corporate culture pros. And I just am so excited to have a couple of guests with us today. And so I would just want to introduce Meredith Masse, and she's been joining us with ICC, and then also Becky Magnotta, and she's also here with Homestead Coaching and Consulting. So thank you both for joining us today, and we'll allow you to give us more of an intro of your background when we get to your presentation. But for logistics to get things going today, you'll notice down at the bottom there's a chat down below, and please, please, please engage in the dialogue. We want to make this a very interactive, engaging discussion today. We know we've got some great experts here, and please enjoy having some discussion, as well as ask us any questions, and our team will be monitoring the chat and bringing those up into the dialogue. In addition, we have a poll, and Sam is going to bring that up here shortly. And this is a way that we can provide you a gift, a free gift. So the exciting thing about these People Strategy Forums, in every single session, we offer you a gift. So here we have a free TMA assessment. You'll hear we're talking about that quite a bit. And then you'll see you can have a 15-minute consultation or more, depending on everyone's schedule. And all you need to do is check the box, and we will do our best to follow up with you and provide that free gift for you. And if you want to get rid of the poll, you just kind of exit out so you can still see the presentation. And so also today, you're going to hear that we're going to be referencing prior presentations, and such as Andreas Fritz from last week. And so it's exciting because some of our dialogue will reference some of the prior discussions, but it's not to be a repeat, but only to enhance. And so Becky will be talking about that as well. So without further ado, our first topic is build resilience with a coaching culture. We were just talking about culture. So Becky and Lisa will be talking about that. And then Meredith and I will be talking about the evolution of leader training and the 4 R's of leadership. And always throughout our discussion today, we all participate. So you'll see us popping in and out and engaging in the dialogue. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick it off. Becky and Lisa, hello.
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 Becky, do you want to go ahead and share your screen?
I would love to share my screen. Can you, there we go.
So you can go ahead and bring up your slides.
Okay.
There we go.
And
I can see your slides.
excellent. All right. So I am so happy to be here with you and to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is building a coaching culture and what that can do to help with resilience. If you think about it, more than ever, we are living in turbulent times. I mean, with COVID-19, the economy, the unrest that's going on with our country, seas are rough, it's stormy, and really thinking about what does this really mean? So we are living in turbulent times. And I know Andreas talked about this last week. VUCA, it's a common term, and it began with Warren Bennis and Bert Nanas in 1987, and then it was adopted by the Army War College in the 1990s. And business started picking this up in the last part of the last decade. But in a way, I think about it, when we talked about times being volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, it was a walk in a park compared to where we are now. Companies, a lot of them are moving from a command and control culture. And now that times are so turbulent and we are in this VUCA environment, it makes sense more than ever to really think about how do we want to be in the future. And that means moving from command and control to a more coaching culture. Now, great coaches to me are your eyes and ears externally, and they're going to help you have different ways of thinking about different perspectives, help you examine the way you are thinking. And that's why I believe coaching and coaching culture really helps in a company. So what I plan to cover is what is a coaching culture and what are the benefits? How do you build it? I'm going to talk about some of the basic manager coaching tools. Then we'll get into resilience. What is it and how can you use coaching to really help with resilience? So there's an organization. It's called the Human Capital Institute. And every year they do a study about companies that are using coaching and what they're doing. And there's several things that I'm going to bring forward in the next few slides. This first one is about how coaching creates high-performance organizations. And they have found from their studies that it increases, there's more collaboration and teamwork. People are working better together. Customers are more satisfied because of this. And employees, we always read about how horrible employee engagement is. That needle hasn't moved in ever. But they feel that in coaching cultures, it does improve more. Employees are more satisfied with their jobs and morale is better. And because of that, you're retaining your high potential employees. And that, of course, builds your senior leadership bench strength. And there's more employee brand attraction. Employees want to go to companies that do this. So I'd be curious with the rest of the panel, what have you guys seen in this area?
So I love this too, that the idea of coaching, and I was posting up in the chat, Becky, that command and control, rest in peace, you know, and I think it bears a little bit of maybe just a couple back and forth between us about why that is. I mean, what you're saying here about coaching creates high performance organizations is true. That can seem a little bit, you know, if you've built one, it really, you can see it. But what happens when a command and control environment is prevalent is that it lacks feedback. And what we were talking about with before the forum started officially, we were talking about the unfortunate situation that's happening with Ellen, you know, who is just one of my favorite comedians, and having her organization be seen and, you know, in this takedown mode as a result of exposing the underneath cultures, because a lot of us were saying there's just a lack of feedback. And coaching is grounded in feedback, right?
Yes.
So I think that's one of the big things I see, is that any organization, whatever word you use for it, if you're creating feedback cycles and psychological safety so that people can really come forward and test the situation and speak openly.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's the big thing.
Absolutely. And I think it's also the idea of what really is feedback. I mean, I know I've been in cultures where one-on-ones, managers were told to do a stop, start, continue. And it's more, I'm telling you, this is what you need to stop. This is what you need to start. This is what you continue. Mm-hmm. But it's not, I'm not asking, so where are you and why is this going on? And it's not a two-way dialogue, including how can I better serve you? So also you giving me feedback of how I can be a better manager for you. I think that's really one of the big differences.
I think it's about what you just said. To me, feedback is about respect, not necessarily about, hey, I have some feedback for you, but I respect the relationship, or I respect the team and what it's trying to accomplish, and let's have open communication on that. So yeah, I really agree with you on that.
Yeah, well, a couple slides.
Oh, just one more thing. Just wanted to mention something I just put in the chat. In Simon Sinek's new book, The Infinite Game, he talks about a coach out of California. I can't remember the person's name, unfortunately, but they have these listening sessions to build teams. And so the rule of these listening sessions is that the manager will ask for basic feedback. So like, what is one thing you would like to see changed in me? And the only response that the manager is able to give is thank you, tell me more. and so that helps a lot of dialogue and increases vulnerability and transparency.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's for a leader who's, you know, because so many leaders have been brought up and raised in organizations to believe that once they reach that seat of power, they've got the answers. And that's the mindset that we need to break down.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So in the study too, they talked about how coaching creates high performance organization. Wait, I already said this one, didn't I? Let me move on. So coaching culture, it builds these different things. Like this, what I'm looking at here, this is the gold standard that we're talking about. So companies that do this best, they do all of these things, but most companies are very far away from this. So the executives value coaching and they're being coached. They use both external, and a lot of times the external are used more for the executives, and internal coach practitioners. Managers, leaders, and peers, they all are taught and use coaching skills. So everybody is using coaching skills in teamwork, in helping individuals, other people in the company when they have issues they want to talk about. Coaching is a dedicated budget item. So they absolutely spend money, whether it's on external coaches, the internal coaches that are hired, and also making sure that everybody is getting accredited coach-specific training. And also all employees can receive coaching. Again, this is the gold standard. Sam, we had talked about doing a poll at this point, and I'd love to do that to see the audience, how they are using coaching in their organizations. And in the poll, you can pick all of these that you may be doing. So are you using external coaches, internal coaches, and managers or leaders using coaching skills? And we'll see what this audience, what your experience is compared to what the HCI study participants said.
Yep, so I launched that poll. We're getting results in right now. And so we'll give this a few more seconds. Still coming in. No, this is so funny. I equate this as watching popcorn pop in the microwave. You know, you hear the popping, and then as it starts slowing down, you're like, okay, we're gonna end it now. Okay. So there we go. Here's, and then in the poll, and let me share the results here. Can everybody see that?
Okay, so 31, 56, and 69. All right, excellent. Thank you.
You bet.
So let's see what HCI said. So in their study, 60% used external coaches compared to, Sam, did I get it right? 31%? Or did I have these mixed up?
No, I think that's about right. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. And 56% used internal, which was almost identical to HCI. And in this group, 69% were using manager leader using coaching skills compared to 82% of the study that they found. So really, overall, it's running somewhat the same. So since both what these participants said, and also in the study, that manager leader was predominantly the way people are using coaching skills, I'm going to be focusing the rest of this on managers and leaders. So I talked earlier about the benefits to an organization of using coaching skills, but these are the benefits for employees by using coaching skills. So, and I think this is the, where the rubber meets the road. This is why this is so important. So employees feel they belong and they're appreciated and valued, because who doesn't need a good listen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I just want to interject here, Becky, as you talk about the focus on the executives or the leaders. In my experience, I've seen executive coaching and leadership coaching only for the top leaders. And, you know, it's interesting. I personally have gone through 2 different executive coaching processes myself. But, you know, on a personal note, at the time I did my one executive coaching, I was getting a master's degree and I was working with my kids and I was trying to balance basically 2 jobs in the organization. And that was a challenge. Now, I desperately needed that coach. But I think what you're talking about is the manager and the leader needs to coach all employees. Is that what you're referencing? It's not just focusing on the top executives and top leaders, right?
Right. Well, what this is skills, and I'll get into that in the next slide, but which I'm so glad Meredith is here because, and we'll talk about that in just a second, why I think that's so important.
I have some great data that will speak to this exact point.
Beautiful, beautiful. But what I'm talking about here is giving managers, by them having the skill set to know how to coach employees. That's what we're talking about here. When I was responsible for talent development at Dish, we used external coaches for our executives. And I also had a team of 5 internal coaches. And we were coaching more our high potential leaders. And then also our programs, we taught managers how to do this. But teaching people to do it and making it part of the culture is difficult. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I think Meredith is really going to hit that home. But these are all the benefits for employees. They understand their role better because there's a dialogue and it's not just telling someone what to do in the moment. They're able to improve their current role and also understand what is it that I need to do to get to the next role. Because the manager is asking questions and understanding what's important to that employee and where do they want to go next in their career so they can help them prepare. By managers using coaching skills and employees learning them also, and also just seeing how it's done well, colleagues can also then be coaching each other. So there's deeper social connection. They feel they belong more. If managers are coaching, they're better able to understand what is really going on. Tell me about, what are the other conflicts going on in your life? I'll talk about that a little bit later. My coaching practice has been changing so much to really listening to people, what's going on in their life, more than I've had to in the past, which is really interesting right now. Feedback too, we talked about this, Lisa and I were talking about it earlier. It's more positive because it's listening back and forth instead of telling somebody what you need to stop, start, and continue doing.
Well, I would definitely agree with that. If you think of a sports team and you think of the quarterback or the tight end or whatever they're called. But, obviously a team is not going to succeed if they don't see their colleagues also coaching and supporting their support, because the quarterback will not be successful if it wasn't for he or she's team. And creating that, and I call it, on the leadership side, I call that leader as coach. But then that coaching culture is where I feel authentic and safe, psychologically safe, to be able to provide, accept, and give feedback so that we can help each other all be successful and support their success, our colleagues' success in the organization. So a lot of sports aspects to that, but even though there's not a lot of sports on right now, but.
I think that's a great example, Shar, of a sports team, and sports examples always get me going for some reason. So one of the things that some great teams do is that they've got different captains for different aspects. So like in India, the game of cricket is very popular. For the uninitiated, it's a little similar to baseball in the sense there's a bat, there's a ball, you got to hit it out of the park. So some of the common elements there. And they've got different players who are given the responsibility of coaching for different aspects in the game. And I think that's what a coaching culture means to me, where coaching is not necessarily flowing from the outside in or from top to bottom. A coaching culture is where there's enough, where people can coach each other, and I'm open to listening to a peer. The peer is also open to listening to me, and we treat each other with respect. We stay invested in each other's success, and we know that by helping each other get stronger, we're building a stronger team and a stronger organization.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about what we talked about earlier with Ellen. If she had a coaching culture, people would be telling her these things that weren't working.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole trust and psychological safety is coming out a lot in the chat as well, the importance of having that. I go back to something with this conversation. When we're talking about the sports metaphor, there is really, and this was coming out in the chat, this perception in this sort of with that metaphor, and the way it breaks down a little bit is that coaching is oftentimes the telling the person what to do. And in business, I really feel that the biggest skill leaders need to learn is how to ask thoughtful questions and do it with nonverbals that invite the person to think. That's where you develop people. It's not just about feedback. It's about getting them to think more critically, and just asking great questions. There was one skill, I could sort of drop into a leader's, persona, it would be that one.
You are so right. And in a way, I wish, let's face it, it's like world hunger to get people to quit using the word coaching when it really isn't coaching. I would
Yeah.
love that. But
It's telling, I'm coaching you because you messed up, and now I'm going to tell you what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is really the breakdown of the sports metaphor, although it is so common to understand the power of coaching through that metaphor. It's one of the add-ons I wanted to mention about that is I think it breaks down a little bit on that level.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
You know, and just I'm sorry, just one quick thing, Becky, that a lot of times you'll see sports teams and coaches where they run the reels after the plays and then ask the team to go, where did this play break down? That's coaching.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Instead of our stereotype of the coach on the field with the whistle screaming at somebody.
Right. Right. Exactly. Right. Well, sorry, let you carry on.
No, this is fabulous. I love it. So here we've got, and this is something that takes a lot of time, a lot of work. It's going to take training. And again, Meredith, you're going to be so fabulous in this part. It's habits, building these habits, because many of us have been brought up in a command and control culture. That's what we were taught. An employee comes to you with a problem or with a question, and we instantly go to fix-it mode, tell them what to do. Instead of this habit of taking a pause, staying curious, not judgmental, listening, acknowledging and validating the wonderfulness of these individuals and how they are whole. They've got the answers. And how do we respond, like you were saying, Lisa, with open-ended questions that are thoughtful? And how are we comfortable with silence? Because people need time to think. And it's not asking the question and then telling them the answer immediately, which I've seen people do. I'm coaching. I ask questions. Yeah, and you answered it. And also just resist imposing your own solution. And it's this lovely mixture of challenging people to make them be more, push out their learning edge, and supporting them that you've got it, and I'm going to help you get there. So Lisa, any additional skills or what's coming to mind for you with this?
I think this is a really good list. And I think that one of the things that I use in my, the culture architecture is what's coming out in the chat, which is ensuring that the strengths that you're trying to build, the areas of capability that you're trying to build, either within a team or an individual, are really clearly defined. Oh, yeah. And that, that sort of building on strengths rather than looking at how we can overcome weaknesses. So.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's positive. It's positive intelligence. It's also the idea of integrated talent management, that we, from the very beginning, we know what are the values of the company, and not just what's on the wall, but what do we really need and what are the skills overall for the company, the universal skills we want people to have, and specific to jobs. What are the skills for the job? And also, like I said in the last slide, where people want to go next, how do we help them with that? I want to make sure, because I don't want to go into Meredith's time, but here are some great examples of coaching questions. How do you feel that went? Where could you, to me, how do you feel that went? To ask an employee that right after something happens, instead of immediately telling them your opinion of how it went, is fabulous. Where could you improve? What else could you do? Who else could you talk to? All of these. But what I would love to see in the chat, and I'll keep this up for a second and then I'm going to quit sharing because I want to read it too. Other questions that the audience can think of that are great coaching questions that you have used or you have seen other people used. So let's build on this and in this community and really come up with some great coaching questions.
These are great coaching questions. Becky, one question that actually has, that came out in the chat that I want to just throw out here is, do we have examples of companies that are talking about, or you know, really putting out there the strategic advantage of having a coaching culture. Do any come to mind for you?
Oh, that is a great question. Of Google.
Yeah.
Google's a big one that I can think of right off the top of my head.
All of the tech companies that were born in the tech age, I think, have a varying degree of it. I mean, if you know about Amazon's culture, it's going to be a lot more of a command and control style, but they're all really accustomed to, because they're working with Agile, they're very accustomed to the model of feedback and seeing that as a strategic advantage. It's for them, it's the lifeblood of the organization. You can't produce an Agile culture without having it be grounded in feedback and constant communication. So.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of these questions in the chat.
There's one about solutions.
What
other solutions
These are
have
some
you
good
considered?
questions. Yeah, I love these that are coming out. We should grab some of these for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What's worked well in the past? What do you want? Because when you have an employee who's just spinning all over the place and it's just, give me the headline.
You know, that's one of the hardest questions for people to answer. Just even in my friendships, you know, I'll, if you hear somebody kind of going off about a problem state or whatever, and I'll go, you know, and I'll ask that question, what do you actually want? And it's like, it just like, it stops in her tracks, you know? I haven't thought about that at all.
And Kevin, this one too, what else? What else? Yeah,
what else?
excellent.
Right.
So keep going, and we're going to have another one of these. And I want to make sure I'm already running a little bit over, but let's switch gears and talk about resilience. And what I find really interesting right now is my coaching practice is more middle managers and their leadership is what I focus on. And a lot of it is, where are they? Are they having maybe with the team issues, or are you blocked somehow? You don't know why. Do you want to get promoted? Do you need to leave? Those are the things I think about. But lately, I am really coaching more on resilience. People are at home. They're homeschooling and having to figure out how to work from home. They're with family 24/7. There's a lot of doubt, frustration, and worry. And it's so important that managers really be thinking about the whole person and what's going on there. So some of the things that people are resilient, they're able and willing to overcome obstacles. They bounce back from failure. But more than that, they're growing from the experience, and they find meaning in what is happening now and how they're going to progress in the future. So coaching, it builds resilience by having trust, compassion. We talked a lot earlier about trust. There's got to be trust in the relationship, and you've got to have compassion. I truly believe you can't lead effectively if you don't care deeply about the people around you and the people who report to you. They have to feel that they really belong, that they are part of the team, that they are included. And we have to support them to believe in themselves and give them perspective. And this is what's really going to build resilience.
Right. I just want to mention something on a personal note with my company. I realized that now that we are in a virtual work environment and we do have these Zoom calls, other behaviors are happening, such as texting each other. Mm. And one, the resilience of the personal issues of our leaders and employees dealing with personal circumstances where they're afraid to take care of their rent, or they're concerned about, being successful. And I found it interesting to the coaching side of it that people read into what you say on a text. And I even had my director finally, and I had no idea this was happening, but at the end of the day, she was like, "Shar, are you mad at me?" And I'm like, well, I had no idea. So, she read into some kind of text where I just didn't seem compassionate enough or caring enough in some way. And she read into it, which was completely past my mind. I was like, well, I didn't realize I was coming across that way on text.
Yeah. Oh, oh my goodness, and let's face it, text and email, you don't have tone. So a lot of it is, look, let's get on a Zoom call. Let's look each other in the eye, one-on-one, and let's, you know, how are you? What's going on? How's your family? What's the kids? I know they're homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing there? It's just so, so, so important. So
Yeah.
I think being mindful of time, I'm going to go to my final slide. That makes sense, everybody? I'm going to assume it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good. All right. So let's go back and talk about turbulence. And I don't know if anybody recognized this picture, but it's actually not a dangerous situation at all. It's the Maid of the Mist at Niagara Falls. And this started as a ferry service carrying 100 people in 1846. And now it's a major tourist attraction. And every 15 minutes, Maid of the Mist 6 or 7 takes up to 600 people up close and personal. And knock on wood that I'm saying this, they've never had an accident at all. So
Wow.
if we think about VUCA, Bill George, and he's a senior fellow at the Harvard Business School. He's provided us a way to rethink VUCA from volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Instead, vision, understanding, courage, and adaptability. And I believe these are what we truly need to be and do in these uncertain times. And coaching people and building a coaching culture is what is going to get us through and how we're going to be successful in the future. So as an extra free gift for all of you, I am offering a free half-hour of coaching session or consultation. And it could be anything from building a coaching culture. If you need individual coaching, that's really what I'm focusing on now. My background is very deep in leadership development and talent planning. It's about coaching your teams. I love team coaching and how to strengthen your relationship. So with that, I'm Becky Magnotta of Homestead Coaching and Consulting. And there's my contact information. And I have been just thrilled to be here with you guys today. So thank you, thank you, thank you so very, very much.
Well, thank you, Becky. You have been a great participant. You've been along with us throughout this journey, so we appreciate you speaking. And you know, one of my final thoughts. By the way, I've been on that mist ship before. That was when I was 15 with my grandma. I had no idea that this was going to be my life later, many decades later. But I also just want to say my last comment on the coaching aspect is everybody needs a coach. The president, not to get political, needs a coach. You know, every individual, you're never above it, you know, no matter what.
He's a great example of what happens when you don't have one.
Yeah.
No feedback his whole life.
No, but it is true. It is.
We did it.
It is so true. I think that it's actually those that don't have a coach. I mean, it's almost, I mean, we can learn so much from other people, and it's so important just for any professional to have a mentor or a coach or somebody to talk to on a regular basis to help them get through these regular issues that they're having professionally. So absolutely important.
You know, to use a coach metaphor, I think about professional golf. And here are these people at the top of their game. They got a coach. So you think of it the same way. All of us, everybody needs a good listen and someone to just be there and reflect back and give you a different perspective, because the way we think of things isn't always the way they are. I use a metaphor. Pluto's no longer a planet. And I don't want to get into an argument about whether it is or it isn't, but really, things change. Our thinking changes. So absolutely. And thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this tremendously.
This is fantastic. Fantastic. So our next topic is very much in alignment with coaching and with Meredith Masse. Hi, how are you? You're going to be talking
Hello, I'm well.
of development, the 4 R's of modern development. So how are you?
I'm great, and it is.
We have plenty of time for discussion.
No, we have. That was such a great segue from Becky. That this idea of coaching, and that we have to equip our managers with the skills. And what we're going to talk about as the segue is how to do that in a way that the skills stick. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So my part of the conversation today, I'm going to throw a lot of data out there for the data heads on the webinar, and build the case for leadership development. We'll also talk a little bit about the trouble with traditional development and why, if you saw my commercial on LinkedIn, why it simply just does not work. And then the best part at the very end, so I hope you'll stick with us till the very end, is what to do about it. And that's where I'll describe the 4 R's of modern development. But first, let's talk about why. We can say that, Becky presented some great data on developing coaching cultures and how that helps to retain top talent, et cetera. Here's what 1,000 global CEOs said, that I think it was a list of 24 different challenges they could rank. Their number one challenge was developing the next generation of leaders. And similar to Becky's data, their number 2 is failure to attract and retain top talent. So if we develop our leaders, we'll better be able to attract and retain top talent. Stick with me here on a little bit more data. Let's talk about those same 1,000 global CEOs and what they said about bench strength in their own organizations. So remember, their number one challenge is developing next generation. Only 14% of those same CEOs said that they felt like they had a strong leadership bench, a strong, successors in those leadership positions. Yet, 65% of them did report that they have high potential programs. So hold on. We have programs, but only 14% of the same leaders said the people who are going through those programs could be ready. Only 68% of the 65 said that they thought their programs were less than highly effective. I shouldn't say only 68%, a whopping 68%. So hopefully you get the picture I'm painting here. And last but not least, 43% of those said that they could fill roles internally as people, when we're talking about the different leadership rungs. We actually have a client who falls right in line with this data at ICC. It's a global organization with a centralized L&D function. They have their leadership development programs, yet in the Americas division, they had no talent ready to step into, I think it's VP and higher positions. So we need the development, but clearly we need better development based on this data.
Well, I find that very interesting, and working with the executive C-suite, it's interesting because often it's the first things to get cut is the development programs, and those quote programs, which it really needs to be more than a program, it needs to be an entire culture,
so true.
Because it starts at the top, right? And so
yes, indeed.
Being that HR leader, and I say, I was the one sitting on an island. I was the one sitting at the table saying, we need to focus on our talent. We need to focus on positive behavior and building a coaching culture, right, Becky? And oftentimes the C-suite would say something like, well, that's HR's problem.
I love that excuse. No, it's
that one
everyone.
Change our entire culture. That one talent management person over a 9,000 employee healthcare system is going to fix the culture problem, right, Shar?
Right. And let's reframe that. It's not HR's problem. It's every leader's responsibility.
Right.
So something that Becky said before, and you had some questions about it, Shar, 46% of companies limit their development focus to the very senior level. You were talking about that, I think, before. And here's the challenge with this, is 42 is the age that, on average, where companies are investing in their leaders. Except that 30 is the average age of a new leader. So they've already had 12 years to develop some really spectacularly bad habits until we come in with, coaching or a program and say, gosh, we have to fix this.
Yeah,
so what we're
systems were well over $100,000 up to $200,000 actually was invested in the advanced leadership program, and often like at a university room with only 25 people, that a sliver of the organization that were getting coaching and development and given the option to give brutally honest feedback. But do you think those leaders would go back to the culture and really cascade the learnings? No. It was mainly just having
especially if that leadership academy was, we're going to bring you in for a week and we're going to teach you how to be a great leader in 1 week, even though it took you 12 years or more to develop the habits you have now as a manager. And if you think about those, that average age 30-year-old new leader or frontline manager, they are the ones who touch about 80% of the workforce. So where's the biggest bang for your buck in terms of culture, in terms of getting results for the business? So we can't ignore those new leaders. So as I figured, let's
a couple young guys from Apple, right? So mid-20s, extremely bright geniuses. And they would talk about these programs that they see their leaders going through and say, you know what, how is that impacting my ability to give feedback and develop and grow? And these three young gentlemen were actually talking to Sam and I about a whole new talent management strategy that HR people never really thought about before, right? So you're absolutely right. It is a younger generation.
So let's get this straight, Shar. Developing next generation is the #1 priority. And even though 65% of these 1,000 global CEOs have an emerging leader program, only 14% say they have good bench strength. So there's a disconnect in those programs for preparing them for what's next. And because only less than half, as we remember, can fill those positions internally. What causes some head scratching for us at ICC is that because they limit their development and don't focus on those managers who oversee 80% of the workforce. And in fact, during this quarantine, here's some things that our clients have been telling us. Now we add COVID on top of the fact that our managers are, might be struggling or at least challenged with the idea of managing. Now let's split everybody up, send all of our knowledge workers home, and let's work remote. Here's what our clients are telling us, that it's way harder for poor managers to hide when we're working remotely because they can't claim I'm too busy, right? Some other clients have said things like this: if they had poor management skills before, it's really showing up as worse behavior now. And then, but people say, well, people aren't going to leave because the economy is so bad, so people are going to stay, so we don't have to worry about turnover. Well, another client told us, yeah, we're seeing lower voluntary turnover now, but if we don't if we don't help support our managers in being better leaders of other human beings, we know as soon as this economy turns around, they're going to leave in droves.
Right, and I think back to Sumit's point earlier about communication, because I have seen the trap of the leader that's constantly in their office, tapping away, email, right? Constant emailing, and they think that's an effective way to communicate, when really visibility is important. So you take that on top of the fact that that particular leader is constantly at developmental programs off-site. So now not only are they off-site for that week or 3 weeks, but in addition, they're constantly tapping on their phones or answering people with their,
yes, and being visible now.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Meanwhile, that employee isn't getting that personalized, one-on-one, trusting, supporting, coaching behavior that they crave. Sumit, did you have a comment that you want to share? I think you're, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So a great comment from Diane in the chat. Crises don't create exceptional leaders, it reveals them. And the same can be said for weak leaders. And I think that's an absolutely brilliant insight. Since we were talking about Google earlier, so Google's Eric Schmidt started off by saying, I don't need coaching, I know whatever there is to know. And later he engaged the legendary Bill Campbell as a coach, and even referred to Bill as an absolutely great influence in his life. So I think great leadership also involves admitting when you are wrong, especially when you've got such strong opinions about things like coaching, and then saying, yes, I don't necessarily know everything. And on the counter side, we've also seen failures like Uber's co-founder, who's repeatedly said that he knows everything there is to know about running a company, and Yahoo's Marissa Mayer as well. So she repeatedly turned down coaches multiple times when she was advised to engage one.
Well, and let's face it, if you know everything there is to know, then all you need is a factory of machines to pump out whatever product or service you have to offer. Instead, you have hired great, smart, capable, hopefully engaged people. Why not tap into their collective intelligence to help solve the business problems and make the business better? So with better leadership development, our hope is that we can open leaders' eyes to getting the best from their people. If you don't mind, in being cognizant of time, let's talk about how not to do it. I think traditional training looks a little bit like this. We're going to bring you in for a day, and in 8 hours, we're going to stand at a board and give you all the theory on how to be an emotionally intelligent leader, for example. Could you, when you were learning to ride a bike, and this is sort of a rhetorical question, but when you're learning to ride a bike, if your parent or the adult who was teaching you to ride a bike had sat you down in your living room, pulled out a big whiteboard, and talked all about the theory of pushing the pedals in order to gain forward motion and ride the bike, could you have ridden the bike after that lesson? Probably not. You knew how, but you didn't have the skill yet. Traditional training has worked this way. And let me just throw out this caveat. At ICC, for many years at our inception, this is how we did training as well for our clients, because it's just the way we did it. But what we started to notice about, of course, 5 years ago, it's not sticking. We may have transferred knowledge, but if what we want from leadership development is true behavior change, a lecture in front of a whiteboard isn't enough, and feeding them through the fire hose is not enough. Because here's what happens. After that, great day and everyone's all fired up and yeah, I'm going to go and practice my listening skills and I'm going to ask great questions. I'm going to be the best emotionally intelligent leader I can be. In fact, what happens is within this time span, they will have forgotten most of what we taught them.
Well, I love the analogy about the bike, because I remember my dad pushing me down the hill and letting go, and I didn't crash down the hill. Yeah, but the other.
And how many times do we do that, especially with new managers, right? Oh my gosh, you are so great at fill in the blank individual contributor role, sales, IT, marketing, HR, accounting. Because you're so good, we're going to promote you so that you can teach everybody else how to be just as good as you are. Push. Now, they wave their magic wand. Ring, you have a new title. You're promoted.
Without the training wheels.
Without the training wheels. Or your dad running alongside, pushing you and coaching you along.
Well, so it of my driver's ed program. Do you remember back in the day, back in those days when we take driver's ed, they stick us in a room with watching the guy with the crew cut driving, and then they're like, okay, learn how to merge left. Okay, use your signal. But they would stick us in front of all these videos, and that actually makes me think of now. Many companies have these learning management systems. And they say, well, you got to have 52 hours a year of learning management systems. And meanwhile, the employee is sinking. They're sinking, and next thing you know, they may even lose their job. What is
I would totally. And in fact, CEB, now Gartner, did some research and found that 60% of new managers fail, and the primary reason is because no one taught them how to manage other people. So think about the IT professional. I like to pick on them because they tend to go to school for a long time. Either they go to school, they get their degree, they get a master's, or they go to school and then they do studies to get all sorts of certificates, but they're spending years of their life to learn how to be a great IT professional. And overnight, again, we wave the magic wand, bring, bibbidi bobbidi boo. You have a new title. So surely you can just go forth overnight and know how to manage other people. That's a completely different skill set. Oh, I got a little soapboxy there, didn't I?
Meredith, I think of something I heard fairly recently, which was the average age of people who go through leadership programs is like 42. But the average age of a new manager is like 27 or something. So how many years are these people floating around? And also, I love this curve, because how many of us have built these programs that it's like a day and you're shoving all this stuff in your previous photo and people are just going to forget it, which is why I love the idea of bite-sized habits, a little bit at a time. It's lovely.
That's right. That's right. Amen. Can we get an amen here?
Amen.
In addition, in the idea of traditional training, there's some other challenges, I think. And again, we've been there at ICC. This is how we used to do training until we flipped it on its head starting 5 years ago with our clients. But here's some other things that we know. Organizations tend to overlook the context of the work. When we're developing training, it's, well, here are the 17 competencies with 9 behaviors under each one that everybody has to learn. Well, what's the context of that leader's job? And let's talk to them about developing the skills that are actually going to help them produce better business results in their job. When we separate learning from the real work and we don't institute great adult learning theory and make it, again, contextual and make it applicable in their day job. We've seen this, you know, so we have to do some simulations, maybe not like the driver's ed simulation, but think about a surgeon. Please, God, tell me that she had practiced on a cadaver before she's going to work on me. So how do you integrate learning into their day job? Sometimes I think we underestimate mindsets. And when we're talking about true behavior change, change is hard. We know that it's hard for people. And people may come along in a leadership development program and say, yeah, but this is so hard. Well, no kidding, because we want you to be open to trying something new. Just like riding the bike, you probably fell off and scraped a knee or bonked your head a few times. The same is true with learning new leadership skills. So come into it with.
You brought that up as far as the surgeon, just to mention that. So if you recall, when the Da Vinci robot was coming out a while ago, I remember everybody was so excited about this new technology with the Da Vinci. And the surgeons literally had to try to practice with fingers and the little rubber bands, and putting, you know, the little rubber bands on the little cones. Well, thank goodness that we had some kind of training so that we didn't have the surgeons literally with these little robots puncturing along.
And please don't practice on me.
Certainly cutting the wrong artery. Right.
Please don't practice on me. Practice on the cadaver first. Do the simulation.
Right.
It's the simulation. It's the role play. It's practicing in order to make it not perfect, but permanent in your brain. I think, you know, we, again, at ICC, failure to measure results, we all do the smiley sheets, right, at the end of the day-long training. Did you like it? Can you apply it? But beyond that, we have to get better at, is behavior change happening? And again, 5 years ago, we knew that we weren't doing a good enough job measuring results, and so we've turned that on its head too in the work that we do. And certainly the idea of ignoring change. If you think that we can, if we think we can sit a newer employee, a newer manager from a different generation, and I don't want to get into generations, into the same classroom that the new manager sat in 20 years ago, and that it will be just as effective, we're kidding ourselves. So now that I've painted this horrible picture of why traditional training, it doesn't work, if nothing else, I hope you remember the forgetting curve, right? That we forget. And if you think about the last training you went to, how much of that do you remember? Here's what we have to do, and here's what we started to do at ICC starting 5 years ago that's culminated in a new way that we approach leadership development with our clients. The 4 R's of modern learning. First, we have to redesign. Please throw away the 8-hour training. We had clients asking us years ago, saying we can't possibly pull our managers off the floor, whatever that looks like, or away from their desk for 8 hours at a time. Can you make it a half day? Better yet, can you make it 2 hours? Sure, we can teach our leaders how to be emotionally intelligent in 2 hours. No. So after we redesign, we're going to reinforce the learning, and then we're going to realign with some coaching, and then we're going to reinforce again. And oh, by the way, just keep doing that ad nauseum. Let me talk about each one of those a little bit more in depth. Everyone on this call, I'm sure, has heard the term microlearning. It's been a hot term for at least the last 2 or 3 years. What we mean by micro-learning is taking that idea of, I'm going to stick with emotional intelligence, taking that idea of emotional intelligence and breaking it up into the smaller skills that leaders need to learn in order to be more emotionally intelligent, like listening skills, like coaching skills, like showing empathy. And we can't, it's not enough to just lecture at them and feed them through the fire hose. We have to get them involved in the learning, whether it's simulations, role play, and mixing it up. You know, we're starting to use podcasts. There's a ton of self-reflection time that goes into the way we're doing it. So think about what is going to help them have that knowledge stick and eliminate that forgetting curve. It's not feeding them through the fire hose. It's small chunks, that's a technical term, so be careful. Small chunks of learning over a period of time. If you think about developing a habit that you have, a good habit that you have, let's say flossing your teeth, you probably had to really think about it. And oh, right, I'm going to leave the floss picks out. I'm going to remind myself, I'm going to floss my teeth. And after a while, you didn't have to think about it anymore. It just became natural, but it wasn't natural at first. And truly what's happening is this little neuron is talking to this little neuron saying, hey, we need to do something different. This one says, I can help. And the first time you try it, it looks like this. It might not go so well. You might tear the floss in the floss pick. But the more you practice and practice well, and we'll talk about that in a minute, the deeper that new connection between neurons becomes. As you practice these new behaviors, they become habits, but it takes time. This is what it looks like in our platform.
I absolutely agree. I would say that, so for example, in healthcare, I love Banner Health because they actually created actual patient rooms just for training. So the actual patient room where the drawers were in the same spot and the tools, so that nurses could literally, and as well as actual, I guess they're called mannequins, I'm not having the right word for it, but literally could practice, like you said, continued practice that behavior. Because this is life or death here. It's not even so much just a little a leadership skill. This is life or death, and these mistakes can kill people if we don't practice those. So I completely agree.
Amen. So we may not be killing individuals with not ideal leadership skills. God, I hope not. But we can kill our retention. We can kill our culture. We can kill our ability to deliver on business results. So that, I think that's a great point. That's that idea of practicing on simulations, practicing some more until it becomes a habit. Another way for new leader skills and behaviors to become habits is the idea of reinforcing. And I don't mean just regurgitating what we've learned in the classroom, but it's encouraging participants in a leadership development program to practice what they're learning on the job, to make mistakes. Let's encourage them to make mistakes so that there's no fear of trying, and let it be okay culturally for them to make mistakes. This is what it looks like in our system. For example, we deliver reinforcement activities that say, hey, remember this new skill we're helping you with? Go talk to one of your colleagues and have that tough conversation. I'm making this up as I go. But it actually, will give prompts to go practice. So it's not enough to just do the theory on the board, right? Your dad took you out, held your bike, helped you learn on the bike. Maybe you had training wheels to get the feel of it. That's the reinforcement. Maybe in this case, the training wheels are the reinforcement. Go practice. The next are, this is where dad pushing the bike comes into play. It's the idea of, I need to process what I'm doing. I need to talk to somebody, and I need some feedback. Because I don't know about you, Shar, but how many times have you gone to a training and you thought you learned a new skill, and you went and you tried it and it did not go the way the facilitator promised it would?
Right.
You look at the workbook that you got in the training, you're like, well, they don't know what they're talking about, and they throw it away and throw up their hands and say, I'm just going to go back to the way I've always done it.
Yeah,
the idea of
with teams that don't really understand the business. You know, there's oftentimes, particularly if you hire a trainer from the outside, that don't really have the business acumen to be able to thoroughly understand, you know, what we're learning here. So I've seen where these programs, where the participants are just, they're just cross-eyed looking at them like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
So it's so important to have someone that you can have the conversation with, whether it's a coach who knows your business, a mentor. We do facilitated group coaching sessions on our system live, so that you get the feedback from your coach, you get the feedback from your peers. And when I say realign, it's that idea of, I'm going to try this. And I make a mistake, whoops, I'm a little bit off path. I make another mistake or a big boo-boo, and I'm really veering off path. The group coaching sessions in our system help people say, here's what I tried. And the coach can say, okay, how did it go? What went really well? And let's celebrate that. What didn't go quite as well as you would have liked? And my favorite question, how will you do it differently next time? So that they don't just take the material and throw it away, but they're constantly refining their skills. It's not that practice makes perfect, but practice makes permanent, right? We're creating a new neural pathway, and you're going to fall down just like you did with the bike. So think about your dad pushing your bike along. That's the idea of a coach, a group coaching session. Working with a mentor, but getting that feedback so that you're encouraged to continue to try, so that you're building a better habit. This is what it looks like in our system. Marcus didn't have his camera working that day, but Erin in the top corner was talking about something that she was trying and making everyone laugh and getting group feedback from our coach Amy on the top left, and then the rest of the folks in her group. The last R is reinforce yet again. And this is where the manager of, a participant, if you will, in a program, or someone who is being developed, comes in into the picture. In our system, we coach the managers in how to coach their direct reports, so that the person who's being developed gets that support from their direct supervisor. How many more books have to be written that tell us that the relationship with the direct supervisor is key? So we're actually coaching the managers to give the support that those being developed need. And we also know that the manager is the one who can say, hey, you've got that meeting next week, or we've got that meeting as a team. I want you to run it. I want you to practice the skills that you've been learning. And let's do this with the team. And we'll let them know that you're, practicing some new skills and to give you a little grace. But why don't you go and try it? Because it's when, and Becky talked about where the rubber meets the road, when we practice on the job with the support of a coach, a mentor, our peers, and our direct supervisor or some other, sponsor within the organization, that's when the practice can be a little closer to perfect. And when we practice the new skills, they become new behaviors. As we continue to implement those new behaviors, over time, they become habits. Just like, coaching, the coaching skills that we were talking about before. Please don't expect your managers and leaders to be great coaches overnight. They have to practice, and we have to give them the room to practice as well. So I've not been keeping track of the chat. I'm happy to address any questions.
So yeah, I'll bring up one. Brian O'Neill, who's also one of our
I love
colleagues.
Brian. Hey, Brian.
So Brian has been a speaker with us before, but one of the things he mentions is part of realignment, in my experience, is ensuring alignment in performance management and appraisal, etc. So it's key that behaviors are being spotlighted in the leadership learning journey. So alignment is also true, right? With all of the things we do to support performance.
Yes,
So,
in an ideal scenario, right? In an ideal scenario, the skills that we're teaching are in alignment with, well, first of all, just like we started out saying, it has to be within context of the business. And what are the skills necessary that leaders and managers have to have in order to drive business results? I mean, I'm a huge fan of learning and development purely for the sake of professional growth and learning and development sake. But if an organization is going to spend resources, money, time, etc., then let's go ahead and make sure that what we're teaching in any kind of development activity, whether it's a program, a one-on-one coaching, that it makes sense for the business. And then how will we measure their success along the way, and know that it's not only helping them just be a better person, but it's also helping the business results. So yes, it absolutely needs to be, in an ideal scenario, needs to be embedded into the entire performance management system.
Well, I believe that the traditional performance management processes are antiquated, and that, you know, oftentimes leaders perceive that, okay, it's now performance appraisal time, and this employee is going to get a 2 to 3% raise, and I need to now go through all their little ratings and boxes. And you met this expectation, you exceeded in this expectation, and it's all focused on the traditional performance management processes are all focused on checking the box. And then what I also heard that is that some employees are like, okay, well, that's a one-time year event. You know, I get one performance appraisal all year long, but why not this ongoing? And what Lisa says here is that as part of that shift in behavior and culture, you have to change what you reward, recognize, and promote people for. But this is not a one-time event.
Who said that? I'm going to give her a high five. And hence why teaching through this, you know, the development scenario we've just talked about, the 4 R's, teaching them to be better coaches, like Becky was talking about before, and encouraging them to have ongoing performance conversations is critical.
Right.
I know. I can't wait. I can't wait a full year, and I ask for the feedback, but not everyone will ask for the feedback.
Well, a lot of times people are afraid of the feedback. You don't want to be made to feel bad, you know. And
you know, I was once afraid of feedback, and something happened. Oh yeah, early in my career, I'm like, please just tell me I'm okay. I don't want to hear anything bad. But something along the way shifted my thinking that feedback is a gift, and I can either take it as criticism or I can take it as a gift to see, you know, if we all know the Johari window, open up some of my blind spots and help me continue to be better. So please give me feedback. In fact, I would love feedback from this conversation as well. I'll just, I want to be cognizant of time. I'll just close out. So if you, this is what we've seen at ICC, by turning traditional training on its head, focusing on the 4 R's of modern learning, and any opportunity we have with our clients to support them in developing their leaders, redesign, reinforce, realign, and reinforce again. These are the kinds of results that we've been seeing. Not just the smile sheet, did you like it, but actual behavior change over time. It's called the Accelerator Program. So that's what that that means under the 95%. So that's the one, smile sheet question we ask. But then we actually help our clients measure behavior change. And, this idea of 71% increase in learning retention after 6 months, this is how you will combat, with the 4 R's, this is how you will combat the forgetting curve, and encourage your leaders to try new skills, develop new behaviors that turn into habits that support the business reaching its goals.
Well, that is fantastic. And there's Carly on here, that Carly Lures, who indicates we are moving to monthly journey maps. So we teach our leaders how to be better coaches. We touch on employee engagement and process of priorities. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about those journey maps. We maybe, Carly, probably have to have you come back as a speaker at some point. But yeah, this is fantastic.
I want to learn about those too.
Right. This is fantastic. And what I love about what your organization, ICC, and your team offers is what I call just-in-time support to leaders. And I think you had an image of a smart device there, and that it literally is on their fingertips, so that, it's not just going to some type of learning management session on your computer, or going to 2-day leadership retreat. It's like those coaching and development tools are right at your fingertips, right? And that's what you offer, Meredith?
Yes, it's sort of a combination of all of those things. So we're trying to keep the best practices from traditional learning. And for those who know ICC, you know that we can't do anything that's purely based only in technology. The technology is a tool, and I think that my instructional design colleagues are amazing at building highly interactive, thought-provoking, engaging practices, like the simulations. But we're never gonna, we can't leave it at that. And anytime we're working with a client, there's always in person, whether it's virtual or I should say live, whether it's virtual or in-person sessions with an expert facilitator / coach to help answer questions, wrestle through some challenges, and help that realignment so that leaders are encouraged to continue practicing so that those new skills become habits.
Right. Well, I just love it. And it also is very much in alignment with what CompTeam offers, which is the TMA method, which is about basing everything on performance and personal growth, and really being in alignment with an employee's behavior, with their motives and their talents. So I think designing, using what you talk about is also important. But in fact, I think it looks like Sam might be bringing up some slides that talk about the TMA method. And the development is really based upon employees' potential, motivations, and talents, putting it into practice. And an employee is going to be far more motivated if we align their development to their strengths and their actual preferences. Sam, did you have a couple comments about the TMA?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, as to what you said, I mean, there's a lot of types of coaching that can be done, and what the TMA method centers around is developing on those competencies, so we can enable our coworkers to move from one level to another, to advance into the career of their dreams. And so it focuses around that and that development. So it's a great tool. And so if anybody's interested in seeing what that is like, or taking an assessment on that tool, you could just go ahead and sign up as on the poll here, which there's the free TMA assessment there. So if you just bring up the poll, you can sign up for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Amazing. I mean, just in this one session between Becky and Meredith, and then what CompTeam offers, we have these free gifts. So if during this time of change and transition, as what Lisa talks about, the forest is burned down, and it's time for regrowth. And we're wondering, where do those seeds come from? Not China, but where do those seeds come from in regards to building that regrowth in an organization? So these are free tools, tips, resources for you. You have the opportunity to take a free TMA assessment and get some personalized coaching from us, so you truly can experience this and, you know, really understand how we can motivate our employees, help them feel supported by the organization, help them flourish and be motivated while their talents are growing, and the leaders are going to be able to align vision and strategic initiatives and strategy. So I think this is awesome opportunity. Lisa, did you have some comments about your regrowth, your nature analogy?
Well, you know, one of the things that about that analogy, I think that's been really prominent in today's discussion is that when that forest burning down metaphor, when the ecosystem rebuilds itself, it does it in certain stages and layers. It's not just and that each layer depends on the previous layer. And I think that's one of the most important outcomes for me of my takeaway today, is that these layering of these skills, rather than an idea that, as both Becky and Meredith have said, you send a leader to a week-long class and voila, you know, you're now a leader. So yeah, absolutely, really powerful discussions today, both in the chat. You guys have just definitely turned my head around in a lot of ways today. It's been really
fun.
I loved, you know, the idea too of context, and just the idea, we've got a chance now, take a pause. What is important? Who do we want to be? And how do we want to build that and integrate all of these systems so that we are doing that?
Right. This is so big what you're saying, Becky, that we have this unfreezing as a word that's used, if any of you have been familiar with Bridges' work on transitions, and there's been this unfreezing of this idea of the way work should be and has to be. And we all have a huge opportunity to take advantage of that. It won't be unfrozen forever, though. There will be this way in which people kind of go back to, you know, because human beings, we need habits in order to be efficient. So it's a good time to reinvent, big time.
Right. And what I love about what we're talking about here with the People Strategy Forums is it is not just a one size fits all. You know, one learning program or one methodology, like Meredith talked about one type of just-in-time methodology, and then we talk about another type that is also, you can have at your fingertips. It's like, I think when you're building the recipe around learning and development, and like Carly here talks about, Meredith mentions, building those better habits, you know, building the flossing the teeth habits. I think one, just to have that awareness that we have a cultural shift that needs to happen in this organization. So where do we start? And what I love is we have all these experts on these forums, as well as everything has been recorded. So if you don't feel like watching the depressing news and you feel like wanting to do something and learning about all these weird things that are happening in our world, I think it's good to focus on the positive ways. You know, so all these different speakers, I mean, we have probably 30 plus speakers now. You can go back and listen to all those recordings, and then also all of those recordings have free gifts. So holy cow, can you imagine the opportunity as participants you have here? And all of our speakers have been so generous.
They have, and I'm sure they would be open to taking a call from any of our attendees at any time. They're very gracious, and I think that's just something that we all need to get used to as in this new age is that we just need to get out and feel free to reach out and talk to people and connect and share ideas. I mean, that's how we grow. So it's a great thing.
By the way, there is a lot of great content in today's chat, and I wanted to just ask this question because I'm actually not sure on it. So on my end, and I don't know if it's because I'm a panelist, there's 3 little bubbles off to the right side of my chat window, and when I click on them, it allows me to save the chat. So if any of you who are attendees would just try that and if you want to save it, because we can push it out to you if you can't save it, but I think you can do that as an attendee. So somebody just try that, maybe Brian or somebody or Carly or somebody, just try that and tell me if it works.
While people are trying that, I didn't know we were allowed to give away gifts. So I actually have a really quick white paper that I'd be happy to share that sort of reiterates a few of these points about modern leadership development, especially in a digital world, that I'd be happy to share with anyone who would like it. So I just chatted in my cell number and my email address and my LinkedIn link. So if anyone would like that white paper, I'd be happy to hook you up with that.
Thanks, Meredith.
Yeah. That is fantastic. So yes, as we're wrapping up today, again, take advantage of those. And also, I think you'll find if you want to link in with all of our presenters, as well as our speakers, I mean, just going through those recordings, you might want to link in with some of us because we are now sharing intellectual property information, tools, resources. CompTeam also has an amazing newsletter that we have with all this information and support for you. So, you know, reach out to us, like, share, please help us build this community because we are really building this great group of thought leaders and experts around people strategy. So again, thank you to everybody. Thank you, Becky and Meredith. It's been such a pleasure. You both have been so engaged and have been along with us at this journey from the beginning. So thank you so much for today. We really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
So fun. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
This was really wonderful, and I look forward to connecting with everybody.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to wrap up. We're at the end of the half hour here. So thank you. You have a great week, and please be in touch. Reach out to us, and have a great week. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.